Thanks for tuning in to Red Dirt Rods. Now today we're working on GM Gen V LT-series engines. This is a 2015 L83 5.3 liter that we took out of a Chevy Silverado. We're getting ready to install a Holley accessory drive, and we're going to show you how to do it for your project. Now we're going to disassemble all of this, the whole thing, the bracket, the water pump, all of this has to come off. Now this whole thing come off. On this engine, this came out of a truck and it has the vacuum pump that all the trucks have. We're not using this, so we're going to remove this as well. This area right here is a little interesting. This was where the vacuum pump was mounted, and on LT1s and car engines, this is blocked off with a couple of plugs here. This is a return line for the oil, and this is the pressure line. This is a metric 12 by 1.75 thread. You can get an adapter to 1/8 inch NPT for an oil pressure sending unit. Some adapter mounts for your motor mounts will make it difficult to reach this with a full-size oil pressure sending unit. So sometimes you can use this, sometimes you can't. It just depends on your motor mount adapters. If you do not use them, then you have to plug these with a plug. The bottom one has to get plugged regardless. So that's just something for you to keep in mind. One quick note about the crank pulley. There are 3 different crank pulleys for Gen 5 engines. The truck version, which is this one, which has 3 different pulleys on it, 3 ribbed sections. There is the Corvette style, which is much shorter, and then there is the Camaro style, which is a little in the middle, much like the LS series. You don't have to remove it. You can if you want to, but this is a torque to yield bolt, so if you remove it, you have to replace that bolt. This is the wiring harness that comes with the Holley kit, and it has these sensors in the right location to work with the new water pump. So we're going to use a T30 Torx bit. We're just going to break these loose for now. Switch to a 10 millimeter. We're going to remove these right here. Okay. Now we're going to remove all the plugs. These can be a little tricky because there's a little slide lock, and sometimes the lock doesn't want to unlatch, so we're just going to use a screwdriver to pop it free. It comes all the way up, and then there's a little tab you push in and you pull it out. Sometimes I use a screwdriver to just gently pry on it to get it to come free. There we go. Alright, now we can take this, toss it. Now we're going to go ahead and remove these. And we're going to break this free carefully. Just want to pry that loose. We have the sensor, and we have this adapter ring that's machined. You just take this and you drop it in, and then this gets clocked this direction. It gets aligned, and then we run a bolt in here. Now when you reinstall this, you only want to use this top bolt. We're going to go ahead and snug it down. Okay. And we take our new harness here, find the orientation. Alright, and we're going to drop this in here. You're going to want to take the plug for this is the VVT solenoid. So we're going to take the plug for the VVT, we're going to pop it on, make sure it's connected, go ahead and latch it, And then we raise the metal trim piece, the retainer. We're going to raise that up to line up with those two holes. We're going to put one bolt in, and then the other bolt. And then we can snug these up. Make sure no wires are pinched. You pinch one of these wires, it's a bad deal. 11 foot-pounds is what these are torqued to. Okay. First thing we're going to do is with the old water pump, and we're going to remove the temperature sensor. This is 19 metric. Okay, pull that out. I'm going to take this, take a little thread sealant, temperature sensor, the water pump spacer. Just going to thread that in there. Now then we have the water pump. This is a Camaro water pump. Comes with the kit. This is the driver's side spacer. It's the one that has the temp sensor in it. Just sit that here. We're going to take a gasket, slide our bolt through the pump, take the spacer, install the spacer, and then we're going to take the gasket and we're going to thread these bolts through the gasket. That will keep this assembly together while we transfer it to the motor. Bring the water pump over. Make sure no wires get in the way. Get your bolts aligned. Get a couple of them started. And we're just going to lightly assemble this. Now we're going to take the temp sensor plug and just click that right in there. This plug here connects to the main wiring harness. Now we have the passenger side bracket. This is an M8 for alignment. And then we have an M8 socket head and an M10 socket head. So I'm going to drop that M8 in there for alignment. This thing drops in here just like this. And uses this bolt hole right here. Then these two lock in place right there. Bump these in here. Okay, now this bolt can come out. The driver's side bracket, we have an M8 here, an M10 here, and two M10s here. Now you'll notice this has a big cutout. That's so it can go around the temp sensor. So we're just going to use these and just kind of lightly thread those in. Then we can install these. Now we have the AC bracket, which just drops on right here. Note this has a nice recess to match up with this recess so it interlocks. Okay. M10 right here. This goes into the intermediate bracket we just installed. And then this is a M8. And it installs all the way through and into the head. Now we have the driver's side bracket. These are all 10mm fasteners. The long one goes in this position. And then we slide these in. These two bolt into our intermediate bracket, and these two go through the bracket and into the head. Now we have our Type 2 power steering pump and the bracket. Drop the bracket on like this. We take one of these M8s. The other short M8 goes here. We have two longer M8s. They drop in there. And then this assembly just drops into this bracket. Start one. Outside short bolt works good. And then we run those in. This is the idler pulley. Comes with this little spacer. Drop it in. M1045 goes right through. You'll notice there's 2 points here. This is for a shorter belt. Start here and drop that in and thread that in. If you have to move this over because you're using a shorter belt, then you can. We have the alternator, which also came in our kit. Drop it in there. 2 M10 socket head bolts. Get one started. We have 3 more bolts we have to assemble on here. These are short M8s. They go in right here and here. Zip those in there. Now, we go to the tensioner. So this tensioner goes across here with 2 M10s. We're going to install the pulleys. Smooth pulley goes down here. Drop that on like that. And the ribbed pulley goes up here with this cap on it. This is the Sandin S7 compressor, which is their small form factor unit. You take the bolts, slide them in from behind. The plastic kind of gets in the way, so might have to take that off. Okay, then we have these 2 thin washers. Each position gets one behind the ear. Last thing is install the pulley. So we're gonna sit this on here and just gonna sit there. We've got our installer tool. You can rent these from any part supply store. You want to thread that in as far as you can. Tighten this down. Take a 11/16 ratcheting wrench. We got a 9/16 wrench here. We're just going to crank that down. Then, flip it. Break it loose. And the installer tool comes off. Alright, now we've got everything ready to go. We've got our belt. We're going to start here. Wraps up and over this idler, around the crank. Then we're going to pull that tight. We're going to go under the water pump, over this idler, over the AC compressor, and to the tensioner. We have a 15mm wrench. Put it on the tensioner, under the belt. And there you go. All done. And that's all there is to installing the Holley Gen V LT-series engine accessory system. This system went together in about 3 hours. You should be able to do the same in your shop. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.